for those that are on, we'll want to have paper towel. So we've got that handy. That's good. Always nice to have that for tapping off brushes, any excess water. And water containers. So I have 2 fair size. I'm not advertising for base oil. My neighbor saves this for me. So there we go. And brushes. I will use for the sky a number 6. So this is a number 6. It's an Escoda. It's just a pointed brush. So it's a good size. And we're not going to wet the whole sky first. We're going to do painting wet on dry. So a good size brush, if you've got it, I usually say 0 to 6, and I will use the 6. So the biggest of all of those. Sometimes I use even larger than that. And the colors are indigo and aquamarine for the sky. We've got a couple of other colors we're going to pop in there, but indigo is a really dark color. It's if I showed you indigo on a canvas, if I was to do aquamarine blue, you can see it's fairly light, a little bit of a gray tone. If I do indigo, indigo is really dark. So if you have indigo, if you don't have indigo, if you're able to just pop a little bit of just a touch of black into your aquamarine, into your aquamarine, will probably give you, just if I just put a little touch of black in there, it darkens it up. Aquamarine, there's aquamarine. There's also cobalt, but cobalt's a little bit of a softer color. Cerulean blue. Cerulean's even lighter. We're looking for something deep, deep. So that's the color indigo. So if you have indigo and aquamarine. And again, if you don't have indigo, then add just a touch of black. Black can be really overpowering. So just a little touch, but a good strong paint, thicker paint of aquamarine, so that you get that dark. If that's the mixture you're going to do. So I'm Cathy. I'm the watercolor artist, and really grateful to have you on today. Thank you for joining. And today we're going to do the lighthouse, but we're going to do the lighthouse in 2 weeks. So this week is the first part of the lighthouse, where we will only paint the sky and the outbuildings. We're not going to paint the lighthouse or the rocky shore. We'll do that next week. So this lighthouse is an original. It's right out of my head. So it's just how I envision lighthouses in the East Coast. Lots of different color at the outbuildings, and the sky. You know, I always like a dramatic sky with a lighthouse. So that's what I've drawn and painted for you, and that's what we'll be working on. And we'll put a couple of other colors in there in the sky, just a touch of yellow and a touch of red, just for some interest. And yeah, so that's that's where we'll be at. So let's go ahead and thank you again for being with me. And let's just go ahead and we'll take 3 deep breaths just to get into art mode. So first deep breath, take a deep breath in and just hold it at the top. Look at something that gives you a reason to smile. It feels good inside, and release. Let's let that breath really go. Second deep breath in and hold it and give yourself a smile and release. We hold a lot of tension in our neck area, so this is a good way to release some of that and to get us focused on our project at hand. So third deep breath in and hold it at the top. Give yourself a smile, lots to do in a second, and release. So if this is your first class on, we normally I would have a project that would last during the time only 1 hour, but this time this is a special project I really wanted to teach you, and I think there's a lot of details and I didn't want to miss any of them. So that's why we're going into 2 weeks. So with that said, we're going to go right into our art project. So hopefully you've got your picture drawn. You're ready to go. I'm turning my camera around. This is the lighthouse. And I'd like you just to observe for a moment the lighthouse. On the lighthouse, at the very top, it has a little spot here at the side where you will need to paint the sky just on this outside piece. And we'll need to paint the sky in this center piece. That's where the sky is going to come through. This is going to be painted dark. This is also sky. So the outside of our lighthouse railing, we'll be able to see sky through it because it's just like a metal railing or a steel handrail. So we'll paint the sky right through the centerpiece and right over those 2 corners. So you want to be sure that when we're painting the sky, we cover that area. So again, we're going to do wet paint on dry. That means our canvas is going to stay dry and we're using wet paint. And I'm going to get right into it. Hopefully you're ready. We're going to be fearless about this. Take a deep breath if you need to. Don't hold your breath, but take a deep breath because we're going right onto our canvas. So I'm going to go from the top left corner. Whoops, I'll just move my camera back a little bit here so you can see the top. So I'm going to go from my top left corner with Indigo. And I'm coming right through the center of my lighthouse, right down to the outside edge. It's going to go through the center of the lighthouse. And it's also going to come from the side of the lighthouse, right down to the other side. So you can see that my dark clouds are really coming, they're really getting built up. So again, this is Indigo. This is the darkest color that I'll use. So be bold with this. Don't be afraid to put the color on, but we're stopping at the lighthouse, and wherever it stops, it's got to come over. The next color we're going to use is Ultramarine Blue. So I'm going to put the Ultramarine Blue underneath that, but leave white in your sky. So the placement of your colors isn't going to be exactly the same as mine. It doesn't have to be. We're just looking for a nice sky. But remember this little ledge that I told you we need to go over at the side of the lighthouse. We need to put paint in that little section. So it's same on the other side. We need paint on the other side. So continuing to work with that ultramarine blue. I'm just adding to my sky, but still leaving some white. And it's okay if I just add a little bit of water and just soften some of those lines. So we're making this look like cloud formations. Again, a little bit more ultramarine blue on the other side, and I'm going to run this color right down to the rooftops. So I've got my indigo. I'm coming, actually, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. I'm going to change to a number 2 brush, a little bit smaller, because I want to get in those little crevices in and around the rooftops. And right down the side of my lighthouse. So bring your color right to the lighthouse. And I'm just going to deepen some of that blue. This looks a little bit light to me, so just going to deepen it a little bit with indigo, but leave some white in your sky. And you have full prerogative to go ahead and play with your clouds, still leaving a little bit of white. And I'm also going to bring some of that ultramarine blue right down the side of my picture. It's right beside this building. I've got a little bit of sky that's going to show up. And I also want a little bit of extra blue just coming through at the top of my lighthouse. I'm just using a dampened brush just to soften some of my edges. So play with your sky. If you want to add a little bit of dark, a little bit of drama in and around some of the clouds, go ahead and put that on there. And then I'd mentioned we're going to add a little bit of extra color in our clouds. So I'm going to put yellow, but I'm putting yellow on my brush and then I'm tapping it off on my paper towel. I want a solid yellow, but I don't want it so intense that it overtakes or overpowers the picture. But I want just a little bit of sun showing through. So I'm going to pick a couple of white spots. And if when you're putting the yellow on, you hit the blue and it turns a little bit green on your brush, then clean your brush off and start fresh. So I'm just putting a little bit of yellow in my sky, just in a couple of spots, just that it looks like the sun is shining in the background. So it's a really tiny, tiny amount of yellow. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of red, just a little bit of red in there. It's going to fade. It will be lighter than what it is now that I'm putting it on because it will dry lighter, but just a little bit of red in there. Just for some added drama. So you can see just a touch here, just in a few spots. I'm going to stay with my number 2 brush. I'm still using my number 2. If you look on your brush, they typically have a number. This is a number 2 on my brush. And we're going to paint the rooftops of the little houses or little outbuildings that we have. So I'm going to use black. With my black, I'm not going to put a solid black. I'm using black, but watering it down, lighter, lighter, lighter. And I just want it to look like a shingled roof, just that light gray color. So that started off as black, but just by adding water, when I add a little bit of water, it thins it out. So it's a nice soft gray. So with that gray, we're just going to do the rooftops. So hopefully where our blue is dry enough now. And our next roof, right beside the lighthouse. So again, we're painting wet on dry. And moving to our other rooftop, which is just beside it, or just below it. So I froze for a moment there. So we're just painting our rooftops at this point. And if you have textures where it's lighter or darker in different spots, it is a roof of a building and they do tend to have different colors. So it's not always solid. We do remember that this is just a piece of paper, so not to stress on it. But if you need to, take a deep breath and we'll make it through. And we have our last roof on the right-hand side of the lighthouse. We're just going to paint again in the gray. So these are fairly light at this point. If you do feel the need to darken them once they're dry, then we can certainly go back and put on a darker color and just add a little bit of black to your watery mix. While we have the black out, I would suggest let's go ahead and we'll paint the doorway of our arch doorway of our one outbuilding. So this is fairly dark. This is a shadow. And I'm just going to go ahead and darken it up just a little bit more because it is a shadow. And we'll move from this barn. We're going to let things dry, so we'll move around the canvas from one place to another. So I'm going into the color ochre, and I'm going to paint the right-hand side outbuilding door in ochre. So it does have a frame around it, which is going to be black, but inside that door is ochre. So this is more paint than water. It's a fairly solid ochre. And I'm using the same color ochre right down the side of the lighthouse to the bottom of the outbuilding. So it's going to come right along the side of the lighthouse. So I'll follow that line right from the top corner all the way down. And I'm going to paint the inside part of that outbuilding in ochre. And one other place where this ochre is on the outbuilding on the left-hand side, the very outside corner. And as I've mentioned before, I like to move from one spot to another to allow things to dry. So the next place I'm going to go is on this little barn or little outbuilding. And I'm going to put a nice fun pop of yellow down the side of the lighthouse and on that triangle. So I've got a nice pop of yellow. I'm just using my finger to balance on the lighthouse where it's dry. And then I'm putting that yellow just in that triangle. Nice bright pop of yellow there. And then right down the side of the lighthouse. So more color than water. A little bit heavier in color. And again, when we're finished, if you look at it later before we come to next week, if there are places that you want to darken up once they're dry, go ahead and add a darkened color on top. We have another building here, doesn't have any color on it, so let's give that a color. Let's give it a color blue. You can choose a different color blue than what you've been using, or you can use either aquamarine or indigo. I have cobalt blue, and I think I'll use the cobalt blue on this building. So again, I'm not doing that little triangle at the top. That's going to be a different color. I'm just going to have to skirt around that yellow. Hopefully I don't do any blending. Oops, there we go. I am going to outline that roof. So if I do hit it, that'll be okay. I am still going to give it an outline. And I'm coming down the side of that building, right down to the ground. I'm coming over to my other building on the right-hand side. And I'm going to do a phthalo blue. If you're using the same blue over, that's fine. I'm just expressing all different blues. So this is my outer building in a phthalo blue. It's a little bit different than the other blue, so it's going to stand out. Right down to the ground, right to the side. And there is a black shadow around this doorway. So I'm leaving a little bit on the one side. but I will come back and fill in. And I'm going to use raw sienna for the face of this building. And raw sienna is, I would say, the same color, very similar to a terracotta pot. So if you don't have terracotta, but you have red and yellow, if you mix them together with a little more red, we're not looking for orange, but it's sort of a rusty color. So that's the color that I'm going to paint on the front of the building that has the yellow outsides. So that's raw sienna. And again, we're still doing wet on dry. So we're very controlled at this point with our colors and our placement. And once you put that color on, you'll really see that door frame, how that arch is shadowed. And I've chosen to do this last little building that we haven't done the side of yet. Well, we will do this triangle at the top, but the side of this building we haven't done yet is in a pink color. So if I take red and just add a little bit of white, or sorry, a little bit of water, not white, a little bit of water, it will turn to a pinkish color, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead, even that roof part, I'm going to paint the whole thing in that pinkish tone. So it just happened to be whatever color the fishermen had that day. Whatever they could find in their basement, they painted their buildings. And sometimes I think that's just what they do, or maybe they were looking at the lobster and thinking, it needs to be pink like a lobster. So we have one more roof color to do, and I've done a blend of yellow and blue to make a green. So if I take my ultramarine blue and my yellow, mix them together, I come up with sort of an olivey green. So that's ultramarine blue and yellow. And that's the color I've done for the front of this building. So it's a little bit different than the yellow, but it does have all three colors mixed together. So it will bring the picture all together, all of the colors. So if your colors are different than mine, that's fine. You have artistic
Is it a
license.
green? Sorry, Cathy, is it a green color? It's mixed.
Yes,
Okay.
it was. If I show you, it was
Yes.
ultramarine blue
Uh-huh.
and yellow. Whoops, I kind of got a bit of a blend there. And yellow.
Okay.
So when I did the two together,
Got it. Thank you.
It turns green, sort of an olivey green. Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's an olivey green. So it's a blend of the blue and the yellow. So as I said, if you have chosen different colors than me, good for you. If you've chosen the same ones, that's good too. Now we have an opening here that's completely white. So let's gray that out. I'm going to use a light gray, almost the same color as the rooftops, but different, lighter than the actual door frame. So this is a shadow that you can see deep into the building, but all you see is just the opening. So we haven't left it white, we've just sort of grayed it out a little bit. Believe it or not, we're over half time. And our affirmation card for today says, self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Ask for help when you need it today. Allow others the chance to help you succeed. So again, self-care is not selfish. You cannot serve from an empty vessel. Ask for help when you need it today and allow others the chance to help you succeed. So thank you for the person that said stop so that we could have that reading. So we're still working with these outbuildings in front, and now I'm still using my number 2 brush. I'm using straight black paint. If you have Payne's Gray and you want to deepen it a little bit, if you add the indigo to your Payne's Gray, you'll get a nice deep color. I'd like to paint the frame where the shadow is for this doorway. So I'm only painting the top and down one side. I'm covering over that white that was there. And with the black, just so I don't have too much on my brush. When I have black on my brush, if I put my brush sideways, you can see I've got a lot of paint on there, but I only want paint on the tip. So I'm going to twirl my brush so that I only have paint on the tip, and I can practice on my page and just try to see how thin of a line can I actually get, almost not touching the canvas or almost not touching the paper. How thin of a line can I end up with? So with that, I'm going to do the outline from the top of my roof down to the front of my building. So very fine line. And then I'm going to do along the front of my building, just at the roof's edge, but it's also shadowed a little bit. So I can put a little bit extra down below because it's going to be in the shadow. And I can do the outer edge as well, bringing that right down to the corner. Still using my number 2 brush, putting my brush on my paper for practice, just twisting so that I've just got a little bit on the corner or on the point of my brush, just with black. And I want to outline my rooftops. So I'm not doing the top of my roof, but I am doing the edges. So I'm going to make this one a little bit thicker. It's in the shadows. And my next building, doing the same very fine line. And it also has a shadow. And the top of my last building is down the side. And while I have fresh black, I'm going to take the opportunity and darken that shadow on the door, on the arch, just a little bit more for drama. The black that I had on there before dried a little bit, and it lightens. Everything lightens 10 to 20% lighter than when you put it on. So we're just going to deepen that arch. Now, each of these rooftops is being shaded by the lighthouse. So we're going to paint in a little bit of shade. So I've got my black and I'm adding a little bit of water. I want it to be a deeper gray than what's on the roof now, but not black. So I'm going to start to paint the shadow from the lighthouse. So the sun is coming from behind the lighthouse and it's going to cross over on the rooftop. It's going to give a little bit of a shadow. The next rooftop also has a shadow. So we'll need to go in the same angle. And we have a little bit of a shadow on a little tiny building at the side. So just a little tiny shadow on that one. And because our lighthouse is in front, we're going to have the shadow going in the opposite direction on the other little hut. So this is where we stop with our lighthouse today. So we have our lighthouse done to this point today, and we'll come back and we will finish up the lighthouse. And we'll do the rocky shore as well next week. If there's any spots that you want to darken or adjust throughout the week, then feel free to do that. Have a great week. See you next week.